I'm not going to tell you too much about the history of my next guest, Paula Moio, mainly because any moment you're going to see an interview with her in which you're going to understand quite why she's so extraordinary. But she's self-made, she's multi-award winning, and her work in Africa, particularly in Angola, is just extraordinary. She's the recipient of a BBC News Award, which is for her work on BBC World Service, where she was for 15 years before being headhunted to work for a private family as a concierge and as a PA. But her story is one that when we published her profile in the magazine, got one of the biggest responses of any profile that we have ever run. And so I wanted to take time out to bring her to talk to you, to inspire you, and to make you feel like you can really conquer the world. Please welcome the extraordinary Paula Moio. Paula Moio, how wonderful to have you with us. This is an interview that I've wanted to do for really quite a long time, and I'm just so excited that you said yes, because your story is really quite extraordinary. I wanted to start with looking at a bit of background, because I know that you say that you're from the 3 L's, and I wanted to explore that a bit, and I wanted to start with Rwanda and with Angola, of course.
So 3 L's, as you well know, Lucy. First of all, thank you so much for having me. I have been counting the days to have this interview with you. Actually, we had it scheduled for 2020, haven't we? And then it all happened, COVID, and then we all stayed at home. But I really, really wanted to have this one. One, because of the connection that you and I have, which is a friendship, and it's a friendship based in respect and professional admiration. I have you as one of my most role models, and for that, and to have that aligned and have the pleasure and the privilege to be interviewed by you, it's, you know, it means a lot to me. So yes, thank you. And as you know, the 3 L's stand for Luanda, Lisbon, and London. I mean, it's just beautiful that all the 3 L's align. And starting with Luanda, I grew up in a very, very happy environment where my parents separated when I was very young. I was 5, and then I went for a year to a boarding school, and then came back to in the south of Angola, and came back to Luanda. And in Luanda, my parents decided that I would stay with my mother's sister. And she had 4 children, more or less my age. And there was me. And I was very, very happy there. You know, my father would come over the weekend. And my background is very political and activism. And over the weekend, we would have guests, and they would have endless arguments over the whole afternoon after lunch, you know, about political and how can things go forward in terms of the fight, the struggle towards the independence. We were colonized by Portugal, and therefore in the 60s and 70s, there was a huge struggle towards independence. And so I was raised in that. So there is a little bit of political vein, blood in me, and I'm always trying to make a difference. That's where it comes from, you know. And it was, and so has a strong stretch of family values, friendship. We were very happy. I remember playing all afternoon during half terms and holidays, we would play endless plays in the backyard, and get lost in planes and then in stories, and then we would go to bed like just dead soldiers. Yes, it was a beautiful, and of course the sea, and the friends, and the big parties, and the tropical weather, all of that mixed, it brings me always good and beautiful memories.
Talk to me a little bit about Angola, because for most people watching this, all they will know about Angola is that it was at war for a very, very long time.
God, yes. We had 40 years of war altogether. It destroys the soul of a country, I believe. First, we had the war against the colonialism, and towards independence. And then after independence, we continued to fight each other. And that was tragic for me. And I left Angola when I was 10, because my father was on the other side of the fight. So some of us had to leave, had to fled the country because of the war. And that for me, out of all, the fight against colonialism was kind of, it's okay, you fight against, you get your country back, it's kind of, it's justifiable. When you start fighting each other, it's tragic, and it's painful, and it's a never ending, because everyone thinks that they are right. And from 75, I think the peace agreement came in 2006. That is long, and it destroys everything, and it separates families, and it was painful. It still is, because we now living the side effects of a long stretch of war, and corruption, and all the social effects that a war of that caliber can bring to a country and to its people. But it's a beautiful country. It's in the southern Africa. It borders Republic Democratic of Congo in the north, and Namibia in the south, and Zambia to west, and then the Atlantic Ocean in east. And it's beautiful. It's almost virgin. Yes. It's almost virgin. It's a beautiful. I think Portugal. It's 14 times and a half bigger than Portugal. You can see, yes. It's huge, it's rich, and I think that is the crime of Angola. It's a very, very rich country, one of the richest in the Southern Africa. So we've got oil, we've got diamonds, we've got gold, the soil is very fertile. I mean, it's a beautiful, beautiful country. I would love to take you there. Actually, we were almost going.
We will go. We will go, I promise.
And you will see exactly what I'm talking about. And it's people that are always smiling despite all the struggle, all the adversity, as you can imagine. Unemployment is at its height, has never been. There's a lot of anger, extreme poverty. And for us who are in the diaspora, you look at it and you think, when is it everything going to change, going to get better? And the question remains open.
Well, I'm absolutely fascinated by your father, because he was a former Catholic priest, wasn't he?
He was.
Yes, I'm really interested to find out a little bit more about him, because he was that, but he was also an activist.
Yes, after. Actually, yes, he was after. So my father lost his parents very young. And of course, as an orphan, he was put in a seminar. So he was raised by priests. And he became this intellectual man, and he was ordained as a priest. At the beginning of his career, as you, if you can say that, as a priest. He found his superior beating up a small kid, and he went to defend the young boy. And of course, as a punishment, they wanted my father to repeat the whole seminar. It's like the A levels. So you start secondary school until they repeat it. That would be my father's punishment. At which point my father said, "Thank you very much for all your help, but I leave now." And so he left. That's what happened. And I remember him telling me the story. Said he was beating up the kid, and your father went there and said, "No, you cannot beat up this kid. He is defenseless and you cannot do this." And so they wanted me to repeat the seminar, and I left. So he lives, and this is 60s. And so the struggle against independence is intensifying there. And of course, despite how can I say that? He meets my mother, and before he gets married, they all have these political activities, towards fighting clandestine. How do you say, Lucy?
It's clandestine.
It's clandestine. They were a clandestine group fighting towards independence, and of course, you cannot do this very openly. That's why it is clandestine. And he was also a choir conductor to a huge group of women. That choir was actually a camouflage for their activism.
Wow.
Yes. It's amazing. So this was a church choir, but the priests were actually Angolan as well. And of course, there was this kind of, yes, we are church, but we also want independence, and we want we want to favor our people. And so the women were a choir, and the priests would actually conduct not only the choir, but the group, the activism, the political. It's amazing. Beautiful, beautiful story. So fast forward 50 years. They did this kind of how do you say? They kind of celebrated 50 years of the group Santa Cecilia, and it was a huge event in Luanda. And of course, they did some kind of mention the priests that were the choir conductors, and my father was one of the priests. There were two priests, and my father was one of the no longer a priest, but part of the church, and the conductor of the choir. And of course, they got to know that Moio, my father, had twins. Oh. Yes, and so the booklet that they did to tell the story of the Grupo Santa Cecilia, they sent this to Anna and Catarina.
Oh. Now look, tell me, where does this say? Oh yes.
Yes, so Grupo Feminine of Santa Cecilia of the 60s, and there's the name of the author. And they sent 2 medals to Anna and Catarina.
Your daughters?
Yes.
Beautiful.
And this is to celebrate 50 years of the group.
Lovely.
So 1959
yes,
to 2009. And that was very emotional to get these, it was very emotional.
Of course. So then your background was obviously in campaigning.
and we'll come on to that a little bit more later. So it's unsurprising that you've ended up doing the kind of work that you have. But I want now to go on to your second L, which is Lisbon. Talk to us about Lisbon.
Yes. So Lisbon being the country that colonized Angola and four more African countries, it seemed the obvious option for people when the war intensified, for people to fled. Yes. And a lot of Angolans and Mozambicans and Guinea-Bissau and Cape Verdean are living now in Portugal because of that, because that was the obvious country to go to. And so I went via Kinshasa, actually. So my father went to Kinshasa because he was the next neighbor who gave political asylum to some of the the politicians that had to flee Angola. And so I spent 10 months in Kinshasa. And then the Red Cross opened some kind of air transportation to take the refugees from Kinshasa and take them to Portugal, because that would be the ultimate destiny. And so I went. So I left Angola in 75 when I was 10 and go to Portugal. We arrived in Portugal 21st of April, 1976. Spring, new beginnings. Truly.
But without your father, or was your father with you?
Well, funny enough, my father was in Kinshasa, and but I was living with the family because he lived in hotels. He was a politician. He lived in hotels, so he left me with the family friends. It was a couple, and different families lived in one villa. And so we had 3 families there, and I was with one of them. So when the Red Cross took all the refugees to Portugal, I was with that family. They changed my surname, and I left with them, not even knowing where my father was. So I get to the airport in Lisbon, and one of the family members of the family I was with said, "Oh, your father is here in a hotel. He's here in a mission." War is the most surreal circumstances, Lucy. And I said, "Oh, no, he's in Kinshasa. No, he's here. Let's call him before you go," because all the refugees would then take a bus and taken to the center of Portugal, to a sanitary that they transformed in a place for refugees from the former colonies. And so before they take you, you stay here in Lisbon with your father, because he is here. I know he's here because I've been with him. So he comes and picks me up. And I call them sliding doors. As we're leaving, my father comes, collects me. We arrived at 2:00 in the morning, got some jumpers from the Red Cross, and warm jumpers because it was cold for us, very cold. And we're leaving the airport around 6:00 in the morning, and there's 2 ladies coming in, cousins of my uncle and aunt in Luanda. And they said, "Oh my God, Moio, Manuela," which is my mom, "was just here 2 weeks ago, crazy, looking for Paula in every hotel that has refugees. And this is me finding my family, because for 10 months, they didn't know about me, my mom and my mother's family, because I was raised with them. And I didn't know about them. And this is to tell you all the circumstances, the surreal circumstances around war, how you get displaced so easily. I was a child traveling alone.
Yes.
In all of this.
But desperately scary, I would have thought, as a small child. Or was it just so normal that it didn't occur to you?
Because of my own circumstances, when my parents separated when I was 5, I got used. I was a very lonely child, but I got used to different places, different homes. I had between 5 and 15, I had 12 homes, Lucy. And so you get some kind of thick skin about it as a child. It's your defense mechanism. And so you adjust.
Yes.
You adapt. Okay. And that is what you do.
So now you're in Lisbon.
Mm-hmm.
How long did you spend in Lisbon?
Oh, I didn't leave Lisbon until I was 17.
Okay, but then you came to London. So how come you ended up going from Lisbon then and moving to London?
No, I went back to Angola.
Did you?
At age of 17, I said to my mom, I want to go. And so I went, and I was so glad, because if I have any roots, it's because I decided to go back. If I have some kind of identity in me, it's because I decided to go back, you know, and find myself in Angola. That was the real discovery that I actually, because I was Portuguese as far as I knew. From 10 to 17, you grow up in Lisbon. You are Portuguese, you know, you become, you know, you pick up the identity and the cultural codes, okay? So when I decide then to go back to Angola, I actually realized, oh, hang on a minute. This is where I come from, and it's beautiful. And this is my people, and this is my food. And you find yourself in such a connected and deep way that this is when I think I was born again then as an Angolan person and woman. And my first job was in Angola as an assistant. I started my career as an assistant in Angola.
Why did you choose to become an assistant?
Oh, did I choose? It chose me. I think, yeah, it chose me. I didn't have formal education because of all the turns and that life got me. And so I needed a job. And I went to a company, it was a multinational company. And the guy I said to him, I was 20 then, I don't have any experience, but I need a job. And he said, so what do you know? And I said, that I've never worked. This is my first job, but I can learn. And he said, okay. It was to be a telex operator, Lucy. Can you imagine? That puts me in a museum already. And so 1 week later, they called me and they said, the job is yours. And the guy tells me, he was a Japanese actually, and he says to me, Paula, do you know why did you get this job? So I was very young, and I think he tried to be some kind of, give me some kind of lesson. And I said, no, and I was taken aback. And he said, well, you said that you didn't know, you've never worked, and you don't know anything around the office, but you can learn. That's what got you the job. Your willingness to learn.
I think it's very interesting. You know that I'm very passionate about the fact that the administrative profession at the lower levels anyway is one of the very few roles that will take women out of poverty. And in fact, it's something that you and I talk about a lot when we're talking about ISIPO, which is our foundation, and how we use that to take women and educate them all over the world. Eventually, we hope, by helping them to get a career in administration. I know that's something you're very passionate about too, isn't it, in Angola?
Absolutely, absolutely. My work in Angola was a complete coincidence. A friend of mine was asked to train assistants for a company, but it was a large group of assistants. And she said, I don't know anything about assistants. My husband tells me that you've been working as an assistant forever. I need your help. But by then I was starting a new job here in the UK, and the timing wasn't quite right. And I said, I need to think about the idea. I've never done anything like this before. I never done training. Yes, I do have the experience. How do I teach though? But I need to see it through in my head. And if I do, I will put something on paper and send it to you. Give me 3 months so I adjust to my new job, and then I'll go back to you. And that's what happened. Sat down one weekend, all the conferences that I go, your conferences, I remember Laura Belgrado got me.
Oh yes, he gets a lot
conference
of
in Lisbon. And Lisbon, it just, Zelda was there as well. You were there as well. It was a conference that really, really hit me. I learned a lot, but I absorbed a lot as well. And the structure of it all, I fell in love. I fell in love at that workshop with Laura. Is it Laura Belgrado, I think. So I sat down and I said, okay, let me just mimic what I've learned throughout all these conferences that I attended. Yours, Lisbon, Victoria, all of them, combined. You've got so many takeaways. Let me see if I can do this. I sat down that weekend, Lucy. I tell you, I did not go out, and I prepared a 2-day program for my first conference summit in Luanda for 2 days in 2016. And that was it. That was history. I was trembling. I didn't know what I was doing. I said, I'm going to do this. So I was a one-person show, kind of. But I also wanted to bring some talent. There you go. Bring some talent, local talent. So I looked and said, I need to find some. It cannot just be me. Not because I'm afraid it's my first training, but because I want to show that we also have some people here who have talent and who can give and who can do this job, not just me. I don't want to be the savior. I want to be the inclusive person that brings on talents, and we teach and we share. That's exactly what it is. And it was beautiful. It was beautiful. We had 60 assistants on that first conference, and it was eager to learn raw, beautiful talent.
We've missed a big chunk out here, because we went from you being young woman in your home and going and getting your very first job, operating a telex, all the way to you being hugely experienced and being asked to train and going back to Angola again. But in between, there was an amazing period of your life where you came to London, and my goodness, were you successful. Talk to us a little bit about how you ended up then leaving Angola and coming to London.
Well, Katerina and Anna were born.
Your daughters.
Although I do love my country, yes. I had twins and I was a single parent. And so it was very difficult, Angola, because of the war, the inflation at 200%. It was a very, very, very expensive country. So for me to have my children, I fast forward 5 years and it scared me. When you're planning, and it scared me because the children would be in a private school and me paying $2,000 each term per child. And I said, no, no, I can have that. So I went back to Portugal. I can have that for free and a better education even. Okay. So I'm going to go back while I'm still young enough to work and to find my ladder in the profession, in the job market, and that's why. And it was the advantage was I had already been living in Europe, so I knew the dynamics, and I was I was in Lisbon, so part of me knew exactly the market and how to kind of navigate those avenues. And so I decided to leave. And it was the most difficult decision to make. Because when you are in your own country and you have a certain kind of comfort, we're part of the privileged few, and you kind of have to give that out.
Yeah.
And come and start from zero again as an immigrant. That was difficult. That was very difficult, Lucy. But I've never regretted it, never. I grew as a human being, as a mother, as a woman, and as a professional. God, I grew. I've learned, and I should, and I just, it's the best part of my professional life. It's here. So I went to Lisbon, and I stayed there. Lisbon and me have this love-hate affair, which is I love going to Lisbon for holidays. I cannot live in Lisbon. I cannot live in Lisbon. We don't align. So I left the kids. I always had an affair with England. Maybe the books I learned English from the school, and you've got the red buses and the phone boxes and the big band, and English was my second language at secondary school. So this love affair was very strong. And so there was an opportunity to come and try life here. So I left they were toddlers then, with my mother. My mother lives in Portugal still for almost 50 years now. And I came here and I decided to stay. It was hard. I think I sent you an article written by Toni Morrison, yes, which was, oh God, the work we do, the person we are. Yes. It's an article by the New Yorker, and it resonated so much with me, because when you are an immigrant and you're starting from scratch in any country, you need to do all the ungrateful jobs, and it was very difficult, Lucy. It was very difficult to navigate, to lose your identity. Sometimes the jobs were so not that ungrateful jobs is the word, jobs that you need to start from scratch, and that you need to clean, and that you need to do McDonald's, and then, that kind of jobs where you think, God, what am I doing? Why am I here? You need to find yourself again. You need to kind of lose everything else, and you are reborn. But you are reborn with humility. You are reborn with a will and a faith that you will be able to do this. You will win this. And faith was something that never left my side. I knew I would make it. For some reason, I don't know, I cannot even explain to you. I knew I would make it. And so this article really made me watery and cry, because it told me that you are not the jobs that you do. Your essence remains, and sometimes you need to go through this rough patch in order to grow as a human being. And especially in our profession, we are givers. And so that part kind of cleansed me and prepared me for what it was to come, And so, yes, and England was that. But then everything aligned, everything, started to build, life got better, and I started studying.
I was going to say to you, you often say to me, you are obsessed with education. And why? I mean, I know the background, obviously, but you were pretty well educated in the end in Angola, weren't you, before you came here?
Well, I didn't have any degree whatsoever, but my family comes from a very well-educated. I'm the only cousin who doesn't have a degree. Everyone else has degrees, and my father was a very intellectual politician, and so I had that in my family. So that was my fabric. So not having a degree for me, in my subconscious, it was something that it had me at a fault, at a default, it was a deficit for me. And so I was obsessed with learning, education, learn a little bit more, do a development course, do this to get better. Today, I think I'm enough. As I am. But it took all those small courses, all that training to make the professional and the person I am today. Without that, I would not be myself. And so I learned with a society that gives you that opportunity. I learned with my first appraisal, for instance, Lucy, was in this country. I never had an appraisal. No, because you are supposed to you're not seen as a professional. Back then, you don't have a say. You work and you do as you told, nothing else. So for me to come to this country and find out that I actually have a voice, that was music for my ears. And especially because I was this person, I need to learn to keep up. I need to learn. And so I did. That's what I did. And I never stopped. So the beginning, after we stabilized and had a proper stable life, the kids went to full-time education. So they started reception. That's when I did an access in sociology with language. And talking about cultural codes and the perceptions that people have because of whatever perception they have. It's either race or woman or for foreigners. So I'm doing this test, English test, at the college to be admitted for the access course. And the teacher looks at us. So there was two Middle Eastern women doing the test, and there was me. And after we've given back the test, the teacher says to me, to us, there's one of you has a very sophisticated English. And she immediately looks at the Middle Eastern ladies. And so, who is Paula Moio? And I said, that would be me. But this is the cultural codes and the perceptions, and you make your own. For me, that had a racial tone for me. That had immediately, and I felt very proud actually that I had a sophisticated English, and that was because I was so eager to learn that I always read in English. The companies I worked in Angola, the managers, the CEOs, when they came, they traveled from England or from Portugal to Angola. They would bring me dictionaries in English because they knew I was so eager to learn the language and to be better, always be better. Yeah.
You pushed yourself and pushed yourself. I mean, you worked for 15 years for the BBC World Service, and I know that you then won an award for your outstanding contribution to BBC News, which is really quite a feat for a PA. I know you were working pretty high up, but can you talk to us about that?
Sure. BBC was a complete surprise. I went, I saw they used to have a pool a recruitment pool. And so you would register at their talent pool, as it was called. And if they had positions, they would go to the pool, depending on the job, and they would call you. So I registered myself, got to know that, registered myself, and get called to work for a position, a team assistant at head of radio news, TVC. So I go, but I thought, why would I? It was a full-time job. The lady from recruitment called me and said, Paula, it's a full-time job. Are you interested? And I thought, oh, not full-time, because I wanted part-time to be able to manage the girls as well. They were 7 years old by then, 6, 7. And I said, oh, but I don't want a full-time job. And then I thought, Paula, you're not going to get this job. So just go for the sake of the interview. You never had an interview in this country. This is your opportunity. Meeting the heads, the voices. So you're not going to get the job. So I go to the interview, Lucy. Wonderful interview with the head of HR, the special assistant for the head of radio news. You know, it was quite higher up already. And the PA, lovely lady, and I would be that team assistant. Half an hour interview, beautiful. Left, called my mom from White City saying, I can do 100 interviews now. And my mindset is, I'm not going to get it. Okay. So the next day I get a phone call saying, you did an interview. And I said, yes, I did. And I was still expecting no. And they say, you got the job. Lucy, this was a job that they had 5 people, 4 of them British, 1 of them doing a temping job at the same position. I got the job. I was elated.
Of course.
I was elated. So that was my starting point. Head of radio news. And then 4 months later, my manager said, Paula, there is an opening at the World Service, still BBC News. So BBC News then had an arm on the World Service, so they would provide services, news to the World Service. And he says, Paula, there is an opening and it's a promotion and it's near home. So it would be Bush House. And so you've got all the advantages to go. We will be very sad to lose you, but you've got everything to say yes for this. I loved working with them. And I said, but why do you want to get rid of me? He said, no, this is a promotion. And so that was it. So came to the World Service News, BBC News in World Service, stayed for 10 years. And the last 4 or 5 years, I worked with my former boss. She was a lady. And she then gets promoted and she goes skyrocket. And I stay 1 year without her. When she gets the second promotion, she calls me and she said, I would like to give you the first refusal. As you know, I got this job and I need someone that I can trust and someone that will protect me. And I've worked with you for so many years. I want you to say yes or no. And, Lucy, this was my birthday, actually. I'm leaving to the restaurant and the phone rings and it's her saying, this is happening. Do you want to come and work with me again? I said with my eyes shut, yes.
Oh.
And so it all started. So this was my highest at the BBC. So by then she oversaw a department of 28 language services, 1,400 people. And I was everywhere, Lucy. Actually, she was everywhere. I had to make sure that she was there and then. And at the beginning, she wasn't quite used because it was higher up job, and I needed to make sure that she was there at the right time. And she, you know, she kind of resisted a bit. "You managing me too much." I said, "Well, I need to manage you. I need you at that board meeting now." And sometimes I would sit outside and wait for her and say, "Your next meeting is in 10 minutes. Shall we walk?" You know, and it was one of the most beautiful, because it was really, really, really busy. It was the responsibility, God, the stakes were so high that I could not let any plate fall. I could not, Lucy, because it was too much. You know, it was really, I had to talk to myself and say, "Paula, you really cannot mess this. You really need to be." So I would work. That's when I became a workaholic. I always had tendencies. That was, you know, no, there's no other option. You need to become a workaholic in order to make this work. And it was beautiful. I grew up so much. I grew as a professional. I think that was the cherry on the cake for me. When you learn about human nature, when you learn about all the dynamics, all the office politics, when you know about nothing can fail. You know, nothing can. It's in your hands and you need to make it work. Looking for solutions, you know, being the solution constantly. And of course, we are not machines. We are not machines. But at certain levels of our professions, we really need to be on the ball. We really need to. We cannot mess it up for us and for whoever we are providing a service and serving. You know.
So you won your award for service to her?
For service to the BBC, for outstanding service. It was an outstanding service to the BBC News. But it's a voted, so it's a kind of Oscars, internal Oscars. It's an annual event, and there are different categories: professional service, which was the one I won on, and journalism, documentaries, and you've got this big, huge room full of the newsreaders, you know, all the celebrities, and I'm thinking, oh my God. And then when they say my name, Lucy, because I was running, it was two of us. She was a fine professional. It never crossed my mind that I would win, because I could not win the person I was running with. You know, it didn't cross my mind. And of course, the vote, it's an internal vote system, and it was beautiful. It was beautiful because it's when you understand that you, as a professional, have got it. You've got it.
But it's not the only award you've won, is it? And I know I had the enormous privilege of being your guest. We went to an awards called the Life Effects Awards, which was held in London, which every year recognises 100 women of colour from across the world for projects that they are working on. And you won one of those awards as well. It was an amazing, amazing afternoon. But will you talk a little bit about that one too, please?
Yes. I mean, as the awards say, I will tell you, the Life Effects Award is given to ordinary individuals around the world who have made a difference in the lives of others, inspiring and motivating them to become better versions of themselves. So that, I mean, you cannot wish for more, because that is exactly what I do, and I aspire to do, and I aspire to inspire others. And to be given an award for that, it kind of cements what we're trying to do with your life, what you want to live for the generations to come, and for what you're trying to be a role model for, and to my daughters, to my daughters. You inspire others to become a better versions of who they are. And if you can contribute in a tiny little way, to inspire them to do that and to not give up, then I'm done. I'm happy. I've done my job.
It's not just your project in Angola, though, is it? Because I know that you go backwards and forwards there and you run your trainings there, and you're very passionate about giving training to the women that are aspiring to careers as assistants. But you're very, very active in terms of diversity and inclusion. And you came to me a few months back, and in fact, you're in the process of writing with a group of other leaders a paper for World Administrators Summit later on this year. Can you talk to us a little bit about that too?
Yeah. Was it 1 or 2 years ago, I went to you and I said, Lucy, we need to do something about this. And was it a conference somewhere in Europe? And I said, how many people do you have there? And you said, oh, about 230 or 200. And I said, so how many? What is the diversity ratio? And so, oh, about 12 people of color. And I said, well, Lucy, that tells us a story. That is telling us something. That something needs to be done. And then, of course, life gets in the middle, your conferences, my travels, work, and family, and we could never work. And then 2020 happens. Black Lives Matter come, and then I went to you. Actually, you come. We spoke, and I said, this is it. We cannot not do anything. We need to do. And what I felt, Lucy, was why I think this is important. It started with me, actually. I go to conferences when we did go. And I attend conferences, I go, and I never see myself equally represented as a Black woman, as a woman of color. And this is just one tiny factor, because diversity is a whole spectrum, right? And I start thinking, why is this? Why it's so many of us? Why are we not represented? Why are we not attending conferences and being in leadership positions in our industry? Because we are becoming this movement, this industry, this body, and we should all have voices, because it's really the diversity of the fabric that we all belong that makes a difference, and that unites us rather than dividing us. And so for me, that is important, to bring the voice, the different voices that we have, to make it better for all of us, to bring the talent that was never seen, that it's not just the Paulas and the Dianas and the Julias and the Lucys, it's so much more, and bring them to the table and inviting them to the table. So for me, this work is important for that, for everyone to feel that they have a say and they can sit with us at our tables. And I know you think like that, and I know all of us are tirelessly working towards that goal. We then sat down. We made a group, a power group. That was a power table. That was a power table. And quite intimidating for myself, but I feel so strongly about this that I didn't mind. I would study 2 days before the meeting, and I would be ready for the meeting, and we would sit down and we would talk about it. And so one of the first things that we decided was to do a survey, to feel the pulse, because what I feel and what we feel might not be the same as everyone else's. So let's feel the pulse of our community. And that's why the survey is so important for people to feel, because we need to hear the voices. It's not us telling our community that we need a more diverse industry, especially at leadership, but them telling us that's why, they need to be heard. And if they tell us, no, we're happy, we've got enough diversity, then we stop. What we can do to bring the voices to the leadership tables is, and this is one of the things that I suggested, was to create this We Belong, the hashtag Scout for Talent, and promote and include diversity, which is showcase talent, do a thumbnail with things that they do to make a difference. Young, not young, people who are thriving and people who are making a difference in our profession, to bring them to light, to give them visibility. That is one of the things that we can do. Another thing is trying to find out whether, why is it that we're not seeing the diversity in our industry more visible? Why can't we see them? I can't see them. Then trying to find out, what is it? Is it a financial problem? Is it intimidation? People feel intimidated, especially as assistants. We always think that we don't belong somewhere. And so it's just to break down that and say, no, we can belong. We are here together. And we want to make our profession a better and more visible, more credible, and more accepted as any other profession. And so this is what we're doing.
It's one of the biggest professions in the world, actually. It's approximately 500 million women. So important. I believe that if you can't see it, you can't be it. So important to have role models from all sorts of different diverse backgrounds in order to ensure that our younger ones coming up are able to aspire.
Yes, without a doubt. And I've started off with 2 profiles already, publishing them in social media. And the difference that made to them, they were so inspired and they were so powered up, and ready to go, literally, that they you could see them, that they felt that they belong. That's exactly what I wanted to, So once or twice a month, I will publish. I'm scouting. I'm scouting for, literally, Lucy. I went to a friend of mine in America, and I said, this is what I want. This is, this is the criteria. Find me. I'll showcase them because it's important. Men, women, all sorts. It doesn't matter.
Not just about race either, is it?
No. It's not about race. We want the whole spectrum of diversity. Race, LGBT, all of it.
Yes, wonderful. So, Paula, you got to the heights of the BBC, you won your Lift Effects Award, and then you were headhunted on LinkedIn and chucked in all of that and went and worked for somebody completely different, doing some kind of lifestyle concierge service. What's that about?
See, to tell you the truth, I was ready to leave. I was actually starting to negotiate some kind of exit. And I remember telling my executive, I'm ready to go. And we sat down at our routine, and I said, this is one. I said, okay, are you ready to go? What are you going to do? I said, well, maybe finish, because I was doing some certificates, finish the modules, because I have still 2 modules to do. And then with the redundancy money, invest a little bit, go to Angola, see the assistant board. The assistant in Angola project was already at the back of my mind. And so I would do that and have 6 months just to kind of do that kind of research and have some rest and reset button and then go back to work. That same day, Lucy, I get a phone call from an agency saying our client is looking for someone with a profile exactly like yours on LinkedIn. Are you interested? Thinking, oh my God. And this is something that happens in movies to other people, never to you. And I said, well, tell me more. Tell me more. And it all went from there. Before that, I went to a B2R. So I had a few interviews. And then the last interview, which was the interview that I was going to negotiate, it wasn't the interview, they had given me the job. And I was just going to negotiate. In between the interview with the company and the negotiation meeting, I had the B2R. Bonnie's be the best, the best.
Be the ultimate assistant.
Be the ultimate assistant. And I learned how to negotiate my salary. I tell you, I cut my deal. And in the end, they said, you are a great negotiator. And I said, yes, Bonnie. Oh, amazing. And so a completely different thing. I mean, I at the BBC, I have a floor full of people from Europe, South America, Africa, East Asia, West Asia, you name it. And then I go to an office with 5 people, including me. And I'm thinking, what have I just done to my life? Because, of course, this is a project. This is an office that is opening in London from scratch. And that for me was the challenge to open, to create, to put systems in place, but all by myself. I was the only admin person, the only assistant. I would do the office manager. I was everything, and the concierge, and it is a family office. And so you've got that exclusivity, almost exclusivity service that you have to do, and it's catered, and it's so niche. And I never had that kind of experience. And for me, it was a learning curve. I would work 12 to 14 hours a day just to bring the office to life, service providers, contracts, you name it, Lucy. And I think all the assistants in the world know. But that for me was the biggest challenge, and one that I loved. I'm still loving the job because it's 5 years now. It was 5 years on the 4th of January. And I'm loving it. And of course, it's the extreme discretion, and which we all have in all jobs. But in here, it's even more. It's very secretive, but I'm loving doing I'm still loving what I do since day one, and this is 36 years after.
So if you were giving yourself advice back on day one, so if yourself now, 36 years on, was giving yourself advice back on day one, what would you say to yourself?
Wow. Just relax, and learn. Learn was always something that made me the professional I am today. But relax, everything falls into place. Be yourself, and don't be intimidated by your executive. Your executive should be your partner, and you need to work together. Have a voice. Always make sure that you have a voice. And when you feel that you don't have a voice, you're in the wrong place.
Now, Paula, you recently launched a new network for assistants. Can you talk to me about that?
Moiueno lusofonando. I had to put Moiueno because it's an extension of my father's name. That starts there. And Moiueno lusofonando came at the back of the seminars that I do in Angola. I never wanted to do seminars in Luanda, which is the capital of Angola. I always wanted to expand to other cities in Angola. But then it got a little bit more ambitious. And I said, so why not to the Lusophone Africa? Why not? You know. And so
explain what that means to people who don't know.
Lusophone Africa is the 5 Portuguese speakers countries that colonized by Portugal, of course. Yes. So it's Angola, Mozambique, Cape Verde, Guinea-Bissau, and Santo Tomé and Príncipe, which is a very small island. In West Africa. And so I thought, why not? Because it's a niche market. Assistants need to be trained, and training is one of the things that is really, really, really almost non-existing for assistants, particularly in these countries. And if they want to be trained, they need to come to yours and to Brazil, particularly in Brazil, because it's the same language, or to Portugal, nothing done locally. And I thought, well, I could do this. Why not? So we were just ready to do our first experience. And that started with Marcela Brito. Yes. And so I said, Marcela, I've got this idea. I can do it alone, but I think I can share. And I can bring other people in, other voices in. Do you want to do this? She said, yes. I'm from Africa. My father has, as an origin in Africa. Yes, I always wanted to go back, to go and find my ancestors, and so I said, okay. So we started off planning a whole thing in 2020 to go to Cape Verde, do 2-day seminar, and then fly to Angola and do 2 days, but not in Luanda, Lubito, which is the third city in Angola. Fly to Lubito, the same day, fly to Lubito, do another 2 days there, stay 1 week to do some business around and get to know people. Everything, leaflets printed in Lisbon, flown to Lubito, to Cape Verde, programs done, COVID struck. And that was it. So had time, Lucy, I had time to think about it. And I said, okay, we won't do it. Let me do a website. That's when the planning of the website, 2020 was all about planning of my website and get partnerships like yourself, World Administrator Summit, Pepitas, Jenny, Gareth, and all names that I could add to the project and donate, because it's a non-profit organization. So I am going to go. I do the seminars. I do not charge.
I have absolutely no doubt that when we come out the other end of COVID, like everything else in your life, you will turn it around and turn it into a huge, huge success. But we will make sure that at the end of this interview, we put a link so that people are able to go visit the website, but also a link to the survey that you were talking about for the diversity and inclusion. Okay, so I'm going to round off with a quote from your homepage, which says, and I know this is you saying this, a dream job for me is when you have the privilege to put to the test all you have learnt, where the very fabric of the professional that you have become over the years is in the spotlight in the best way possible. It's your showcase and you don't have to be perfect. It is, however, crucial that you are consistent, principled, and adaptable. Paula, what do you want your legacy to be?
Oh, Lucy, my legacy would be one of integrity and kindness. Giving is a gift that I have, and it's genuine, and it's giving what I've learned is even more. But knowing that it's when no one is looking, it's what you do when no one is looking that matters. And it matters the most because you're not expecting any recognition, but you're doing selflessly to the benefit of others. That is for me a legacy. To bring light into anyone's life and to make a difference into professionals, people, human beings, elevate them, give them a voice. Keeping my own, having my own as well. That is my legacy, to give.
And it's a wonderful legacy. Paula Moio, thank you so much. This has been an absolute honor.
It's my honor, my friend. It's my honor. Thank you.